Hi, hello everyone. So this is a very important video for all of you. Most of the students struggling with reading comprehension have this question time and again. They struggle with the amount of time they have and they don't know how to use it. So the biggest challenge in reading comprehension is not that the options are difficult or the passage is lengthy or short, whatever it might be. The biggest challenge is that within a very short amount of time, you have to not only read the passage of approximately 600 words, but also go ahead and mark 4 to 5 questions with 4 or 5 options correctly. So in the sense that you have a huge amount of work to do in a very short amount of time. That is the biggest challenge for us when it comes to CAT reading comprehension. So if you look at the number of questions that you have in RC, you have 24 questions roughly. That comes to 5 passages, 4 passages, and you will not have more than 2 minutes per question. In fact, you have less than 2 minutes per question. So if a passage has 5 questions, you have 10 minutes to read the entire passage and mark the options correctly. And in that, you are expected to mark 80% of the questions correctly. So that's a huge challenge for most of us. Now, the problem is that where exactly do we get stuck in reading comprehension? The biggest problem that I have seen with most of the students is that they take too much time to read the passage. And what happens because of that is they have too little time to spend in the questions. In the sense that suppose if you have 10 minutes to solve the passage with 5 questions, if you devote 3 minutes to reading the passage, then you will have only 7 minutes to solve 5 questions, which I think is very small amount when it comes to 80% accuracy. So the idea is how to optimize, in the sense that how to optimize your reading speed. So I have put something very important here. I have said here that the idea behind effective reading is to give more time to the questions than to the passage. This is really very important. It is categorically given here that the idea behind effective reading is to give more time to the question than to the passage. So I have laid down 5 very important points. I will keep on repeating this whenever I take how to read a passage session. So these 4 points are very important. The first one says ignore the intricate details. So when you say ignore the intricate details, that means whenever you see something which is complex and having too much of details, you just don't focus much on that. Most of the students, they tell me that they have problem with retention. They're not able to retain the information. The solution lies in the question itself. When you have problem retaining too much of information, don't try to retain too much of information. So the moment you try to retain the details of the passage in the very first reading, you're going to miss lots of things. You would read too carefully. You would read looking at all the minute things. And as a result of that, you will waste too much of time in reading the passage. Consequently, you will have too little time for the questions. So the first mantra here is that ignore the intricate details. Whenever you come across any kind of intricate detail, just forget about it. Don't try to get too much into it. Map the key nouns. I will demonstrate these things to you. Key nouns are very important because you must know where the key nouns are located in the passage. So for example, if you have a particular noun and a question comes about that noun, you can come to the passage and immediately look for it where exactly it is there in the passage. Get the gist of the paragraph. Connect each para to the central idea, and leave that part which you find difficult to understand. So I will just demonstrate each of these when I read these 2 paragraphs for you. So these 2 paragraphs are from a small article, and I will read the first paragraph and then I will tell you what exactly was important and what was not important. The para says here, video games introduced children in the US to the world of microcomputers at a time when computers were becoming increasingly important in many jobs and in daily life. So this is the first pointer here, right? From this, I get to know that the passage talks about video games in the US particularly. Nothing much significant. When I go ahead, it says the first successful electronic video game was Pong. So this is the noun. This is the noun that I say is very important. So video games has come in the US. The first was Pong. Now this is how you connect the ideas. The topic is video games. The first important video game was Pong. This is what we have, which appeared on the scene in 1971. So the date is fine. Once you have Pong, the date will come. Pong was a non-violent video game which gained wide acceptance in a relatively short amount of time. So this is where the detail comes Pong was non-violent, it gained wide acceptance, it was used into polite society by appearing in airports, train stations, and other establishments that were not of the typical CD quality. All these, this is what I mean by detail. So it is very important to know that Pong was a video game and it has come in the first paragraph. But what was it all about? There is no need for me to worry about it. So if you ask me that until this point, what is important? Video games was introduced. Pong was a video game. It came somewhere around 1971. That's it. Violent, non-violent, short amount of time, train stations, airports, fine. These are the details that I have said here. That ignore the intricate details. There is no need to worry about everything and say, oh, I have to remember everything. I will memorize everything. You're not writing a university exam where you are expected to memorize everything and quote it the way it is in the book. So there is no, these are the details I was talking about. Just check it out. If there is a question on Pong, then you can come to this part of the passage and try to find the answer. So the detailing is required, but when the question comes, then the detailing is required. So when you come to these kind of detailing, you just ignore it or just read very quickly without worrying about what exactly is given here. The founder of Pong eventually created a company called Atari. So this is very important. A company called Atari was created, Atari video computer. It became available for the home. Shortly thereafter, a variety of other video games could be played in front of the television while sitting on the couch. So this is the first paragraph. If you ask me, what have you understood about it? I would say only 3 important things I have got from this paragraph. The first is video games seems to be the topic, the broad idea. There seems to be the first video game Pong, which has come in the US in 1971. And then after that, the Pong company, created something called as Atari video computer. So video games is the topic. From that you have Pong, and from that later on you have Atari. That's it. So the 3 nouns that are important are video games, Pong, and Atari. That's it, nothing else. If there is a question on Pong, I will come here. If there's a question on Atari, I will come here. So that is what I mean by map the key nouns. Ignore the intricate details. Get the gist of the paragraph. How? By connecting the nouns. So video games came in the US. Pong was the first video game. The company that created Pong became Atari later on. Leave the part that you have difficulty to understand. That's it. Whenever you have difficulty understanding something, don't try to fight with it, people. This is something really very important that will make your task easier. When I go to the next paragraph, I have something more. It says by 1979, Atari's home video game system was so popular that other companies developed their own video game system in order to enter the market, but none rival Atari's success. So from this, I get to know that many tried, but no one could match Atari. Games like Breakout brought Atari more wealth and fame. However, between 83 and 85, home video games experienced an immense downward plunge. So when I'm mapping it, I realize Atari reached a peak and then there was a downward plunge somewhere in this time, which was partially due to some unsuccessful game programs, whatever the reason. Critics are not specific about what was bad about Atari's marketing strategies. Perhaps Atari's technology was not advancing and fast enough, and new games were not differing from those that had preceded them. An apparent reason for Nintendo's and Genesis modern game consoles. The company lost over so much amount and the home video market appeared to be completely dead. Meanwhile, video arcade games, which had been thriving from the introduction of the first games, continued to provide a social gathering for play. So when I read the second paragraph, I realize that it seems to solely focus on Atari. And there seems to be the success of Atari at the start of the paragraph, and towards the end the author talks about how the Atari company experienced poor sales because of some reasons that are given. I don't worry about it. Again, the reasons why Atari failed, if there is a question, I will come to this part of the passage. If there is a question on Atari's success, I will come to this part of the passage. So this is what I mean by mapping the passage. So if you ask me what is this para all about, this is about Atari's success and failure. The first part seems to focus on the success reason, and the second part of the paragraph seems to focus on the failure reasons. That's it. So if you ask me what exactly is the gist of these 2 paragraphs, the video games is the focus. Pong is the first video game. Atari is the company that created the video game. Atari became a success. Gradually it became a failure because of certain reasons. That's it. Go and take the questions. So what do we learn from this short video? We learn that reading is important, but it is not necessary for us to remember and retain everything, because the more you try to retain everything, the more difficult it becomes for you to smoothly sail through the passage. You must not get into the intricate details unless and until there's a question on that. So if you go to the question, if there's a question on Pong, you will come to first part of the paragraph, of the first paragraph. If it's the question on Atari's failure, you know that this Atari's failure has been discussed in the second half of second paragraph. So that way, when you map the passage, you know what is located where. So it is very, very important to know that this is the paragraph, this is the central idea, and these are the places where the stuff have come. So when it comes to good reading, efficient reading, keep these 4 points in mind, and gradually you'll become smart at it. In the next session, I will get one more video of a similar nature, and that will better help you understand how to read variety of topics effectively. Thank you.